Let's examine one more thing here. Now again, and I've said this at the end of several chapters, just because we're done speaking in this chapter about paths in the pen tool does not mean in this series we're done talking about it. We'll bring it up again, especially like around selection time in that chapter. But for our last lesson, go ahead and open up Kripalu Blues, because we do have a clipping path in there. Now the setup for this, if this image over here has any type of mask, no matter what it is, get rid of it. Click on it, press the delete key. Get rid of layer 1 and get rid of the finished group. All you want is that, and it looks just like this over here. What's a clipping path? Well, number one, they're not used as much as they used to be. But the purpose of a clipping path is to define two items like presses, 4-color presses, what area of the image to print and what areas to make transparent. And that's the way we did it. Now, the technology is catching up with transparency. For example, PSD documents, TIFFs, PNGs, all support transparency, and a lot of them are supported directly to a press. So the use of a clipping path is not as prevalent as it was years ago, but it's still something we want to know. Go into paths, because that's where it is. Now we've got to convert that into a clipping path. Let's bring this out so you can see that just a little bit easier. There it is. If I come up here to this button right here, which is of course preferences, you will notice that clipping path is grayed out. Now the reason for that, and it's very important, is you can't make a clipping path out of an unnamed path. Work path is not a name. That's a generic name. So double click and give it a name. Like flower. Click OK. Now go back up here and you'll see clipping path. Now it's asking for the path. If you have more than one, you select it. What's flatness? Flatness instructs Photoshop on how tight to make that selection out of that vector path. If you leave it blank, it's going to be like shrink wrapped. I usually like to put maybe a 1 or a 2 in there, so I'll put 1. Click OK. Now watch the word flower when I do this, because we're about to convert that into a clipping path. It gets a little bit thicker. It lets you know this particular path is a clipping path. We need to check one more thing. Go up to the word image on the pull-down menu and go down to mode and make sure it's 8-bit, not 16. Clipping paths are not supported by 16-bit images. Now with all that done, even though we can still see everything, the press won't see it when it's saved, because we're going to go to the word file and go down to save as, and you're going to come over here and you're going to save this bad boy as a Photoshop EPS. That's it. You give this to your press operator, they know what to do with it from that point forward. Anything inside the vector gets printed, anything outside becomes transparent. That's it. On to the next.